Animal sacrifice is a very cruel activity that is happening around the world. A lot of animals, they are getting sacrificed and they're getting killed in various kind of rituals, festivals that have been included in the religions all over the world. One thing that makes me happy about Christianity is that it doesn't practice animal sacrifices. But the thing is to realize how did animal sacrifice came to an end in Christianity. It's a really interesting thing because in Christianity, if you read the Old Testament texts and if you find out the history, you will find out that a lot of animals were sacrificed in the ancient days. The God of the Bible himself initiated this practice of animal sacrifices because of sins of first human being when he disobeyed the commands of God. Both his wife and men were condemned because of the sins they committed against God. And to cover up those sins and to forgive those sins, these humans were required to sacrifice animals and to shed the blood of animals so that the animal would be responsible to carry the sins, iniquities and transgressions of the humans whenever they committed sins. It was not only the first human being, Adam and Eve, who were cursed. Along with Adam and Eve, all the generations, earth and the living beings were all cursed and under the sin. So due to this influence, God initiated this animal sacrifice in order to forgive the sins, iniquities and transgressions. The theology of animal sacrifice is that the sins, iniquities and the transgressions and the mistakes and weaknesses of human beings would be placed upon the animals, and this animal would die instead of a human being. Due to sins, iniquities and transgressions, it was important for the human beings to die, but God initiated this animal sacrifice so that human beings would not die, but the animal would die by carrying the sins, iniquities and transgressions of human beings. But Bible clearly mentions that it is a pictorial, it is a symbolical aspect of the Bible. God actually was symbolically telling the man and woman that in the time to come, in the future, a man would come. A God would incarnate himself in the form of a human being and then would die for them, and their sins, iniquities would be forgiven. In other words, this human being, the incarnate God, would actually carry the sins, iniquities and transgressions of human beings, and he would be sacrificed and their sins would be forgiven and they would be redeemed. They would have salvation and they would have right to enter into kingdom of heaven. So whenever God was speaking to Adam and Eve, he was actually talking about their sins, iniquities and transgressions would be carried by this man, by this perfect man who would be sacrificed on the cross. So this man was none other than Jesus Christ. He was born 2000 years back in Israel. In Israel, before Jesus was born, the animal sacrifice was heavily practiced. But when Jesus was died on the cross, nailing his two hands and his feet, he died. And it is thought that this is a sacrifice. But when Jesus came to earth, Jesus was born of Virgin Mary. That signifies that none of the sins of men and women committed was transferred to Lord Jesus Christ. So Jesus Christ was actually crucified on the cross on the same day where the animal was sacrificed. On the same day where the Easter lamb was sacrificed. A Easter lamb is an animal sacrificed where the animal is being killed for the sins, iniquities and transgressions for all the people that were living in Israel. So Jesus Christ on the same day was crucified on the cross and he died on the cross carrying the sins, iniquities and transgressions of human beings. Isaiah 53 chapter clearly depicts the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross for the sins of human beings, carrying the sins, weaknesses of human beings. Human beings were restricted of various kind of privileges. They were restricted from going to heaven. They were restricted to have redemption and salvation until and unless their sins, iniquities and transgression were forgiven. And Jesus Christ, dying on the cross, carried all their sins, iniquities and transgressions along with the curses, and now they were freed because of this original sacrifice which was Jesus Christ. In the Old Testament, the animal sacrifices represented the sacrifice of Lord Jesus Christ. So these ancient people were practicing animal sacrifices because of trying to remember someone who would come into this earth as a human being and would die for them and carry their sins, iniquities and transgressions and then free them from the curses and allow them to enter into a heavenly kingdom. And all those who believe in Lord Jesus Christ are Christians. And even the Jews and Israelites, now they have stopped animal sacrifices. The Christians believe that they do not need to sacrifice animals because Jesus Christ himself was a sin offering for them, a sacrifice of sin for them, and the sins, iniquities and transgressions have been carried by Jesus on the cross, and now they are free from all the curses, all the sins, iniquities and transgressions, their sicknesses, their weaknesses that was being carried by Jesus on the cross. And they believe that redemption and salvation actually is the way that Jesus Christ opened up the door for all the human beings. So Christians, they no longer practice animal sacrifices. And that is why Christianity is getting popular among all the other nations, because it is a religion where animal sacrifices are not being practiced. If you look at Hinduism, if you look at various other religions, and if you look at various kind of spiritual practices such as witchcraft, witch doctors, and various kind of spiritists and mediums, you find that the animal sacrifices are very important in their practices. It is to appease their gods, it is to appease their deities. And also some of the witch doctors, they tell that they need to appease certain kind of evil spirit. So this evil spirit, these deities and various kind of gods of all the other religions are still demanding the animal sacrifices. But the Bible tells that animal sacrifices are not needed anymore because Jesus Christ, the perfect human being, incarnate of God, has come into the world and been sacrificed for us on the cross. This is why Christians don't sacrifice animals. This is why Christianity has put an end to animal sacrifice, and this is how Jesus Christ, the founder of Christian religion, was able to put an end to animal sacrifices that had been practiced in Israel and that is being practiced around the world today. So if anyone who ever believes in Lord Jesus Christ still continue not to sacrifice animals for their sin, for the iniquities and for the transgression, and to appease various kind of deities that is available in this world. If you want to know more about Christianity and the animal sacrifices, please write to me and I will answer you all the questions.